giving us the wisdom and lessons and sometimes the motivation we need to do the same. Um, we are sponsored by a wonderful organization, Tri Art Manufacturing. This is a huge family business. They are all over the world distributing the paint products that they create as well as other art supplies. They make top-notch acrylic paints, watercolor paints, oil paints, everything you can imagine that an artist would need. They also do a lot of other great things like their custom audio equipment. So definitely check out Tri Art Manufacturing at tri-art.ca. And you can find them distributed in local stores near you with their store locator, or you can shop with them directly online. Let's hear it for Tri Art Manufacturing, guys. All right, I'm pumped up. So today we're going to dive into a topic that I'm very excited for. I met Erin recently through Instagram, not too recently, through her desire to get some printing done through our organization, Kingston Frameworks. We do a lot of art printing. So we've been talking about that and her business. But as I got to know Erin, I learned that she's been a business owner before. She's done a whole lot of businesses. In fact, she's been a bit of a serial entrepreneur, which I can certainly relate to. She's had successful sales of her business. She's definitely had some lessons learned through tough times, as any business owner does. And with all of that, she's decided that her next business venture is really her art career. Now, she comes from a great art background, which we'll learn about today. And I thought it'd be interesting to find out, how does she approaching starting an art career with a background in business? So let's give it up for Erin. Thanks for coming, Erin. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for driving down. Glad to have you here. So why don't we kind of get started by talking about this amazing, unique art style that you've developed, which is the iconic hero. You want to talk a little bit about your art just to get us kicked off?
Sure. Well, the hero is kind of the branding architect that I'm using, but it's actually quite literal in the subject right now, which is kind of fitting because it's a very adolescent archetype in general. So it befits someone who's just starting out in that way.
Cool.
And this one is Ronin.
Yes, this is Ronin. So, and you were just telling me that the Ronin is a samurai without a master.
Yes, so in feudal Japan, the Ronins were they would be part of a clan, and then either the master would die, or some other event would happen where they would find themselves without a master. So they roamed around, and a lot of them got into trouble.
Yeah.
And
interesting. Is that a metaphor for
maybe
where you're going right now?
So with that, I don't want to actually imbue too much of my own interpretation on it, because I don't want to propagandize people, because what you get out of that is just as valid as what I get out of it. I don't want to get too inflated about, oh, it means this. You know, it means different things to different people.
Yeah.
What it means to me could be different on a different day.
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
You know, you could take the angle of one has benefits of having a master to serve, whatever that means to you, or not. So we're always kind of this internal battle between freedom and roots, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I can see you put a lot of thought into it, but also it's just something that comes out organically, and you experiment with it, and then the viewer's going to interpret it the way that they want to. You've done quite a few other, I think, quite inspiring pieces. I've seen one of a Spartan warrior.
Yeah.
I've seen some tigers.
Yeah.
I've seen, there was a gentleman who had some headphones on. I wasn't sure if that was a specific person. RZA. Yeah, so from the Wu-Tang Clan. Yes, nice.
Yes.
Yes, so like all kinds of iconic heroes. Some Greek sculpture, I think, or Roman sculpture.
Yeah, it's experimenting with technique. This is how I'm learning to paint.
Yes.
So.
Well, you've learned to paint. You've had some background.
It's a practice.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't proclaim mastery over it at all.
I understand.
Very,
I
very
understand
new.
that. But let's talk about where you did come from. Like, art isn't something that you just started doing yesterday. You've done some lessons in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So you've definitely had art in your life. You've definitely been a creative person. You've done music as well.
Mm-hmm.
And only now are we kind of getting to it. But why don't we just dive back a little bit? What is your artistic journey up until this point as far as visual arts go?
Visual arts specifically from childhood. Just drawing and painting and being encouraged, and my parents giving me every single art supply in the world.
Right.
And the flip side to that is I actually didn't have any guidance with the art supplies. So I kind of had free reign, but I really, really needed to learn. I was 11 years old with oil paints and some wax paper. And I was trying to figure out, so I had a book and I was trying to paint a lemon and it just wasn't, it never dried. And I just longed for some guidance and mentorship. So I feel like the biggest motivator for in anything that I do is looking to learn from others. I mean, you gain wisdom from the mistakes of others, you know.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to find mentors all the time and just emulate what they're doing.
Yes, and I think you mentioned to me that you've had a mentor in the past for art.
Constantly, and they teach hundreds of artists, thousands, but hundreds of them become quite successful. They're an art classical atelier and also a business school, and I owe being able to do any of this to them.
Cool, that's awesome. And big shout out to John Milan and the Milan Art
DJ
Institute.
Freezy J, as he's known online.
You're kidding. DJ.
Look him up.
How do you get that? Okay, cool.
He has this. It's his story. I'm not going to tell it.
Yeah, no, for sure. We'll have to ask him to come on the show or something.
Oh, that would be something.
Cool. Well, that's great. Okay, so you've always had art in your life.
Yeah.
You've only recently decided this is where I'm going to go, and I'm actually really curious to see how that all plays out. But you've also done some business work in the past. Let's talk just a little bit about some of the businesses that you've actually helped create, maybe just worked in or helped develop, and some of the key things for you. I mean, that's a pretty broad question, so let's narrow it down. You were talking about your yoga retreat business. I'm really curious to hear more about that. How did it start? Where'd it go?
I can't remember the precise years, but 2000 teens, the mid 2000 teens. Three of us worked really diligently to put together an international retreat business. So teaching yoga and different little workshops. And my colleague, she is not only a yoga teacher, she was an archaeologist. And so we thought, well, why don't we put together an adventure, yoga retreat adventure? So we'll do some excursions and we'll also do the inner work. And that took about 1.5 years of working several jobs. You know,
like within the business or also jobs outside the business?
Outside the business, but then taking transit to one day job and then at night coming home and working diligently into the late night and doing that sprint.
Long hours.
But three of us were able to build something in quite a short amount of time. I would say we took about 1.5 years to put everything together, scouting locations in Turkey. You know, she was in Serbia, we were in India, so we were operating out of Canada and India. It was a lot. And then we sold it. It was fairly simple to put together, but the big challenge came with we had 5 terrorist bombings that year. So it was Ankara, Istanbul, Ankara, Brussels Airport, Istanbul.
And in relation to that, where was the retreat
taking
place?
We were in the south of Turkey.
You were in the south of Turkey.
So we had four terrorist bombings, and then the big hub, which was in Brussels Airport. So a bunch of our clients couldn't come, and then a bunch of them were scared. So then we had to give deposits back because. So all that is to say is managing that kind of an intense crisis really helps you to understand how to make policies, how to. It's beyond customer service. It's how to deal with people when some really serious things are happening.
Yeah, things you really couldn't plan for. Like honestly, I felt that way during 2020, with everything going on. It was just truly crisis management.
Yeah.
Every step of the way. When you're running a business, you got employees or people who are expecting things like that. It's tough. So it sounds like that was a pretty big storm to weather.
Yeah, and then I guess you're making me think about managing expectations. So
Okay.
managing expectations, I think, is big for operators, but also when you're on the customer service and sales end of it.
Yes. Oh, like nonstop. Nonstop.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that not only you're promising the right things and, you know, it all makes sense to the customer, but sometimes their expectations still might be different. They might want something a different way and you have to figure that out. But then during a crisis, like I mean, most people, at least during the pandemic, were fairly understanding most of the time. At first, they give you patience. But with what you were dealing with, I mean, that was very localized.
Yeah, and all that is to say is we went through that challenge, but we were still able to figure it out enough with the people that did end up coming. And I would say, and we broke even financially.
Which is a huge win in a case like that. Yep.
Yeah. So to me, that was it was how do you define success?
Right.
So we defined success in a particular way, which was, okay, well, we would like to be able to continue it the next year.
Right.
Right. And we didn't know how to do financial projections, so we didn't really think about it. But we thought if we break even, that's a lot for the first year of running a business. And we did, and then two of us sold it to the third person, and she still runs it. So
awesome.
we learned all about the branding and how to promote online and dealing with foreign country visa, travel logistics, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And dealing with
kidding.
pays, international pays.
Yeah.
So that really set up a back-end infrastructure that I could just go, okay, well, now I can sort of apply that to any service-based business, at least. This is the first time I've dealt in e-commerce for product.
Right. Right.
Of what I've made myself. So I've helped others with e-commerce before, but yeah.
Fascinating journey. So with all of that, I think you really touched on something very important. And I think that's true for basically any business out there, basically any creator out there. One of the goals that we kind of, sure, you can have income goals, or you can have targets. Like, what are you really trying to achieve for yourself? What's the win here? Sure, we can have all those things. But sometimes it really comes down to just survival. Like, the goal of life is to just keep on living, right? The goal of your business is to keep it running. You know, if you can make it to the next year, and it sounds like you guys did that successfully somehow through that crisis.
Yeah, it's a
and then you
numbers
also
game.
have, you know, someone still running it today. So I think it's important that we like align ourselves with a continuance goal. Like, as long as I can keep doing this, I haven't failed, right? You haven't quit, you haven't lost your edge, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. So it's repetition, repetition, repetition. The only reason we kept going is because we hit so many eyeballs with the promo.
Right.
Marketing,
Was
sales,
that
marketing,
mostly
sales.
Ads? Like, you were doing paid ads
It was
through Google?
so
or?
we were doing all three people were teaching classes in our respective areas. So we were teaching live classes and then handing out flyers and conscripting all of the client lists from all of the yoga studios where we were, and cold calling and running ads and then follow up.
The and of marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the sales part of it.
Right.
Just go. Like, understand what the outputs are.
Yeah.
And then go, well, what are my inputs to get those outputs?
Exactly.
And just do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's honestly such a key point, because you know what you want to get. What are the action items that actually get you there, and are you doing them enough? I was taught that a lot in commission sales work when I was first starting out on my journey. They'd actually have you drill right down to, like, okay, you need to make 200 calls to get to 10 people or something like that. Thankfully, you know, that basically worked out, but it was a lot of work. It sounds like, I also want to touch on this. You probably, I would assume, had some of the highest conversions from those relationships that you already had through the clients that you were teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, those are super important. Any number of ways that you can reach and
There's something about cold calls, though. It really
Yeah.
trains you to be resilient to hearing no. I like Alex Hormozy talks about look for the no.
Yes.
Like actually have a goal of how many rejections that you're going to have.
Right.
So just try to bank all of those rejections.
Yes. You know, he's
really
coming
like
out
that.
with his second book this
$100
Saturday.
million leads, I know. Yeah.
Super pumped.
Shout out to Alex Hormozy.
Alex Hormozy, really, really great author. Read his first book, changed my life, and I've been watching him ever since. He's got a very refreshing perspective on business. He actually talks about art and business quite a bit as well.
And Layla, let's not forget the wife. Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen as much content with her. I've seen them mostly talk about their own relationship.
She's the operator.
She's the operator.
Yeah.
He's out there.
He's the marketing guy.
She's keeping it straight.
Yeah.
Cool. Power couple.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so this has all been great. Good background. I'd love to dive into your approach now, just with your art business that you're launching now. Like, how's it been going? What are you thinking about the most? What are those key activities? I mean, really take that to whatever you'd like. I'm very curious to hear more about how you are going to launch your art business with all of this background in mind.
I'm seeing boxes, like just areas that we're covering.
Yeah. We're broad spectrum.
So there's the production side.
Yep.
So collection's not quite finished yet.
Okay.
But we're going to have 30 in this series.
Okay.
There's another series that's an animal series coming out. That, I don't know how long that one. That's pretty open. That can.
Okay. So you've made some very clear sort of collections targets, like collections that you're building. You're saying I'm committing. To that.
And then we have the online aspect of it. So I haven't yet released the website because I haven't released it yet. It's not ready.
Yes.
So there's the production part.
Yes.
There's putting the back end infrastructure part, understanding brand and brand management part. So I'm trying to outsource as much of this as possible.
Right. So now you're also managing freelancers or other contract workers.
Contractors.
Kind of
yeah.
How do you find in the website, is there something that's like holding you back right now from getting it launched, or are you just like at the precipice, you just need to finish it up?
Well, the collection has to finish. And now I'm learning to be a photographer.
Yeah.
Because
a whole skill set that you didn't know you had to have.
Photographing oil paints, oil paintings rather. Yeah, you have to have this whole tech part of it. You have to have equipment. You have to deal with the logistics of that coming in. Does it work? Are they compatible?
Yep.
You have to return. Just managing your equipment is a whole other part of it.
Oh, and just getting a good file at the end of the day is quite a lot of work. Like you think it's just magic, right? Photographers can just do this. Not quite.
Yeah,
I know that we've got some artists in the audience who can completely relate to this.
I'm sure they can.
Right now.
I'm sure they can.
Just shout out to our free scanning guide for anyone who's going through that. I know Erin's been using it. You can definitely get a free scanning guide on our, just DM me scan, and I'll send you the free scanning guide on our catalog.
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yes. So you've helped me a lot with getting this stuff together.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, quite a bit actually. Yeah, I found some other little channels.
Thank you.
And this, I really appreciate it. So.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you driving all the way down here for this discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah. So so we did production.
We have production.
We did back end.
We have back end.
And you was
so
in
then we have
freelancers.
sales targets and goals. But before even actually sussing that out, I had to figure out what is your market. So I'm trying not to be too speculative as someone so new to this, right? Because I have a lot of theory. Like there is just oceans of theory. You saw, like I came in with a bag of books.
Yeah.
But it's like there's oceans of theory and trying to put this into practice one thing at a time.
Yes. When it comes to the market, you're trying to basically engage collectors. That's a whole approach.
Well, right. So I am, but everyone's so different. Right? It's like, which market are you going to go down? And I talk to a lot of artists that don't really know where they're going. So you have to choose. You have to choose your own adventure, as you will.
Let's like break those out a little bit. The different markets. Like, I mean, I might see it a very different way from you too. So There's, say, gallery collector market.
Yep.
There's, say, I work with a curator market.
Yep.
There's art fairs. There's like, how do you see these markets? I'm thinking of more maybe channels and access points.
Access
But
points.
the actual people
yeah.
behind that might be very different as well.
Access points depend on whether you're self-representing or whether you have representation.
Okay. That's like straight up, that's one of the things I love to talk about. The unrepresented versus the represented artist.
Yeah, so I'm unrepresented.
Your artist and marketer.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges for me is separating.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not making your favorite work. You look at your favorite work. You make sort of the complementary style. Your temperament is going to be the opposite of what you're attracted to somewhat.
Okay, dive into that. Like, help me understand that.
So my favorite stuff to look at is very classical Burgero,
okay,
or Cesar Santos,
okay,
or Hanayata. There's more contemporary, but those the neo-romantics or the classical,
right,
Baroque and more kind of realism.
Yep.
But that's not how I naturally paint in temperament. I'm very frustrated by that.
I see. So
it's
what you would love, like, are you trying to say there's a bit of a gap between what you'd want to create and the skill, or are you saying it's more just like what the market wants, or?
You could think of it in terms of relationships, like a romantic relationship.
Okay.
There's your complement.
Okay.
It'll be your complement. Not necessarily, I don't want to say opposite, but it's more of the complement to what you do. You don't want someone too much like you.
Okay.
You don't want someone too far off. So I'm not being clear.
You're doing fine.
I'm not being very clear.
Some of these things are difficult to describe.
It's a bit elusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we're onto something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I look at this, I see a very classical Baroque style, but then you've also brought into place a wild, abstract, colorful burst, right?
Right, but that's not my favorite art. You're not going to make it. It's a little narcissistic to go like, I make my favorite style.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe.
Gotcha. Okay.
This is my opinion. So
yeah,
it's
no,
not,
absolutely.
It doesn't mean anything. It's not worth anything.
maybe it's worth more than you know. Maybe. I love it. All right. So, okay.
I'm getting a bit tangential.
We're getting on to marketing.
Yeah.
And understanding your market.
Yeah.
And who that is, and it's very speculative, as you mentioned.
Yeah. So you would want to just project forward and go, okay, well, where do I want to be? Meaning, what problems do I want to have in my daily life? What problems?
Very insightful. When it comes to being an artist, it is a different kind of business than other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every business has its unique qualities. You mentioned that the elusive nature of the problem that you're solving, when it comes to art, is one of the major differences, because that problem is very personal, I assume. You want to dive into that a little bit? Like, what is the problem that an artist solves for a person?
So there's the customer avatars problem.
Okay.
So in marketing, you have your customer avatar.
Yeah.
What's their specific problem? That's more granular than the bigger catch, which is it's kind of a luxury item. So it's not a necessity to have on the wall, but some people might argue that. Right? What are the oldest professions?
Art.
Farming.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, absolutely.
Art. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's there, but you're not solving a problem like house cleaning, like a service-based business like labor, for example.
Right. Yeah, it's
like,
not
I need to clean my house. I don't have to put something on the wall.
Yeah.
But so there's a deeper problem that you're solving. You're in a different needs area for people.
I think often we don't necessarily think of art as a solution, but we should think of it that way, at least when we're considering it for marketing purposes. Because truly there are problems to be solved. Like I speak with my customers all the time, and they want something up on the wall. Why? Because they want to feel good in their space, because they fell in love with something and they just have to have it. That's almost a problem created through love in a way, right?
Well, yeah, you're talking about connection. So there's a need for connection there. Some people collect art for as a need for diversifying their income or their investments rather.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's a different need.
It's like I'm kind of tired of all these boring stock investments. Let's invest in something more fun. I've literally heard a curator say that that's some of their clients' approach to how they buy their art.
Yeah, now you can do fractional investments like real estate investment style. You can do fractional investments
in
on
major
art.
Pieces of art.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
And
I have
gold.
not. Have you tried that? Like
I haven't. I've looked into it a little bit.
Okay.
I'm
Is this like NFT style?
No.
Like it's more of an actual stock ownership.
Yes, you own a fraction of the actual piece.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So what pieces could I own?
There's
I want Napoleon on a horse. That's what I want. One fraction.
Why?
I just love that piece. And I love history, and Napoleon's story is a wild ride. I have to see the movie when it comes out. Yeah, something about the icon of who he was and what he did to change his country. Also the fatal failing that he made ultimately with trying to go after Russia. Don't go after Russia. You get overextended in the winter. But there was the story of him crossing the mountains, which was to surprise his enemy, basically. No one thought they could go all the way over the mountains. So that's exactly why he did it, right? And that's a truism for probably many battles of the past, but also business tactics. And, what do people think you can't do? Well, that's maybe exactly where you want to go.
Yeah, that's the hero's journey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's why I love that piece. Because it's directly about that story, I believe. I'm pretty sure, at least in my mind, it is. Which, there you go.
Yeah. So you're talking about pain points and the problems that you want to solve. So that's where the hero's journey starts with the pain, right? You sent me a question asking about superpowers. That's just your pain overcome.
Interesting. Okay.
So your superpower is the pain that you've,
yes,
the problem that you've solved for yourself or are in the process of doing, because a lot of these things it's not mathematics. If you have a self-concept, self-worth problem, that takes time.
Okay.
I don't know if you're ever going to be, well, this was the day that changed for me, but you might be.
I mean, sometimes there's certain moments in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And those are big moments. I heard someone recently, I loved this. The hero and the villain are really from the same place. They're both overcoming pain. Usually there's some clue in a villain that they've got a scar on their face or something happened to them. But the difference in the approach is the villain says, I'm hurt, so I'm going to hurt the world. But the hero says, I'm hurt, and I'm going to make sure no one ever feels that pain again. I mean, it's more of a storytelling thing, but it resonated with me. We all have that choice. Like, I think whenever we go through stuff, and life always makes you go through stuff, things you don't expect. I'm going on a tangent too now.
No, not at all. This isn't a tangent at all. This is related to everything that you're talking about.
Sure.
So that's basically the human condition is something that we try to understand through things like business.
Yeah. Yeah. Business, stories, artwork.
Yeah.
Kind of goes to the approach that everything really at the end of the day is a work of art, especially if you approach it that way.
And I don't want to get too far into self-concept, but the defining of, because you're gonna lose me into asking you what is the self.
Yeah,
but it's
philosophy
just
101. Let's go.
It's just this idea of overcoming the pain. Like, how are you going to help your customer overcome their pain point, basically?
Right.
So if you ask me, like, what do? You have to give the one sentence pitch.
Sure.
Okay. So I make abstract realist. I make large scale, visually bold, abstract realist style paintings for transformation directed, achievement oriented individuals.
Oh, there you go. So we've even got a pocket of person there.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably why I'm drawn to your work, because I think that's kind kind of me.
Achievement
Kind
oriented.
I might be in that avatar, I guess. And I know lots of folks are like that. I mean, when I think about your work, for instance, or even me wanting to own a piece of art as the problem as the customer, I want my space to be more inspiring, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not the kind of person who's looking for the next pretty thing. You know, that's just not my approach. I want to be inspired. Inspired's a very key word for me, right? So maybe that's one of those problems anyway.
I can feel it from you. You're like, what can I look at that's going to be like, yes, that will help me climb the mountain.
Yes. Yeah. And I think every piece of art has maybe, or style or approach probably has some element like that, right? What is that person looking for that actually wants to purchase that art, that wants to put that in their space? I think that's very interesting.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I'd love to like see a book of just like all listed all out. Every single reason people buy art. I don't know. Is there a book like that out there? Why do they do it? It's very individual. But it's also
a really interesting book that I'm reading right now is the $12 Million Stuffed Shark by Don Thompson. So that's the
$12 million Stuffed Shark
by Don Thompson.
Okay.
He's an economist and he taught at U.
Is it literally stuffed with $12 million?
Yeah.
Is that what?
No. It was a formaldehyde suspended shark carcass that sold for $12 million.
I see. Wow.
Yeah. So this book is really, really key for understanding things like auction houses and how to build a blue chip art brand and perception and reputation and the evolution of contemporary art and where does it cross over into this conceptual performative and how to just understand why an investment banker who you would say is highly intelligent and knows how to manage finances, why would he pay $12 million for that? Why?
Right.
Why?
Right.
So that book is helping. I'm not even finished that book yet.
That sounds fantastic. I got to check that book out.
Yeah.
Putting it on the list.
It's a good
That's
one.
great. We should start like a little recommended book section of this show. That's going to be the first one on there.
That's a great one
Yeah,
for artists to
we got
understand.
some nods. All right, cool.
To understand who's your buyer, like what are these, what are people thinking?
Right.
Because if you're in sales, you're supposed to understand sales psychology. You're supposed to understand your customer's psychology and what they want.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I will say for myself, just in my own business, one little key insight that I've been able to double, triple, quadruple down on was that everyone has a secret stash of things waiting to be framed.
Interesting.
Right. And so I think there's things like that for every little business out there, every style of artist or creator or whoever you are. When you've worked with enough customers, you go, oh, this is something that they all have in common. And I mean, for me, it's very easy to just remind them, hey, we're here. We know you've got a secret stash of stuff waiting to be framed. You know, it's things that we often put off. And that little key insight really opens up floodgates of
I've never
opportunity.
Thought of that. Yeah.
No, of course not, but that's my business, right? So, you know, what's yours, right? What's that little piece that's going to resonate? I think you've already nailed on some of those things.
Professional athletes and people who have, not always professional, but as an avatar, professional athletes or multiple entrepreneurial sort of retired professional athletes. That's sort of, that's
I've been
target.
reading David Goggins recently. I feel like he'd be into this style.
David
Goggins
energy.
is go hard, don't quit. Oh my God, I probably wouldn't even do it any justice, so I won't try.
That's.
I can imagine he turns some people off, but I've quite loved the message and actually diving into his personal story. You realize it's a lot less just macho man and a lot more vulnerability dealing with ourselves and overcoming that, right? So I think that's exactly that hero's journey that you're positioning, right?
My psyche was shaped by the 1982 film Conan the Barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger. That heavily shaped
I'm gonna put that
psyche.
on the list.
I probably watched that movie 3 times a year, and yes,
it
really.
I've never seen it.
Okay,
I gotta go see it.
Quintessential hero's journey.
Okay.
So
Conan I didn't even know it was an Arnold movie. God, Do I live under a rock? I've heard that movie named so many times.
Yeah, no, it really, really shaped my psyche. I found it inspirational to have when a child's entire family is murdered and his village is burned to the ground and he gets sold into slavery.
Yeah, that's hardcore.
Yeah,
and
that's
then pretty hardcore.
Gets trained as a warrior and a cage fighter, essentially. I love the UFC and Bellator, and I paint.
Yeah, it's not unlike John Wick, to be honest with you. It's just a little further down the journey.
Okay,
I'm all ready.
Like, we're getting into it now. This is my sweet spot. So we're talking about vengeance.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
So
that's a driving force, honestly.
Yeah.
If we're honest with ourselves, it often is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and play like, oh, I'm pleasure seeking to a degree because I'm somewhat of a hedonist, as we all are, but I'm more running away from pain. And that's an adolescent aspect of a personality. That's an aspect of the hero archetype of the young warrior, right? The young brave is running away from the pain. He doesn't know what he's running towards yet. He's running away.
As a very common motivator in many people, and especially in ambitious people, is I'm going to do this because I'm going to show them I can do this. I mean, maybe it's not quite so pointed, but the idea is that you're running away from something because you're trying to create something better.
It is, though. It use your pain or it uses you.
Yeah. Use your pain or it uses you.
Yeah. You said to me on the phone the other day, just as a closing, I called you and asked you some tech question. And you were like, just use that anger. I wasn't even particularly fired up. I was actually pretty calm. And you were like, take all that anger and just use it.
It was the frustration with the photo scans. That was what it was about. That's what because they are very frustrating sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah, use it to push you forward.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that was more just me projecting, because sometimes that's how I deal with things.
I don't know. Maybe you smelled the relatable traits.
Maybe. That's awesome. Wow, man, we have gone through a lot of great things. I am curious if anyone has any thoughts. Just start thinking about them, because the audience is always welcome to jump in and throw some questions at you.
There's some much more experienced pro artists here in the audience.
You got some really great artists here in the audience, which could be fantastic.
They're all shaking their heads.
Well, I just love the approach. So when I think about who I've talked to over and over and over again with many artists, it's very much I'm really not a big fan of this whole business thing, but I'd love to do my art full time. Right? I get that a ton.
Honestly, I started doing it myself because I had so many artists. I was working in music and I was in art sales forever. One of my first jobs when I was 14 is selling arts and crafts. Yeah.
Selling like a Michael?
So
like
selling sculpture. No. Indonesian, Indian, Mexican stuff. So I had I don't want to get too tangential. A friend that I made friends with the owner, as I tend to do. I walked into a store, made friends with the owner because I like to talk, right? Extroverted, blah, blah, blah. Made friends with the owner and I got a job and I just started selling and I did really well selling. And then I moved on to a different one, doing art sales, selling jewelry.
Okay.
So selling all kinds of different things for different people, mostly art though.
Yeah.
From handmade jewelry to Mexico to like $10,000, $20,000 malachite carved sculptures from Africa.
Cool. Wow.
I got to work with this amazing curator in Port Perry.
Okay.
We put together an art show for the Port Perry Art Crawl. We put together an estate. Her stepfather, Michael Reeves, had a painting estate there.
Wow.
So I got to learn how to take all of that stuff, and she did restoration. It was a huge project. But I've always been in art sales, and I've always had artists around me, and they always ask me to represent them, and they make me crazy.
Why?
Because sometimes they want something and they don't know what they want.
Okay.
Or they don't want to be directed, or they don't know what they want. And I try to manage them, and I try to direct them in a certain way, and they don't want to do that. And our mind is changing.
I feel like there is a change in that. I feel like I see quite a lot more. Over the place.
20s, forget it.
Sure. Sure.
Killing me with this.
There's a little maturity maybe.
Well, yeah, because once you hit 30, you go, I don't know anything about finances.
Right.
I'm gonna be 40 this year, and I went, oh, you know what? I've never invested in the S&P.
Yeah.
Like I got nothing.
I think it's all over the place for me. Often, usually it's a bit more of a mature audience. Oftentimes in your 20s, I don't think I've seen a lot of artists who are really ready to do what it's going to take in their 20s necessarily, but I do see people who are investing themselves, taking courses. They're using the actual information they get. They'll really manage their social media brilliantly.
Social media is a big one that's helped.
And they invest in new products. They create products out of their art. They're thinking more business-like, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think even the 2020 pandemic really created a whole new breed, a whole new group of people who said, you know what, I want my life back. I don't want to just work for the man or something like that. And in some ways, again, running from something, but they have a passion and they're directing it well. I see it a lot.
You're talking about the COVID thing and it slowing down. Like for me, my 20s was living in Toronto and it was just survival. Mm-hmm. It was just survival and overstimulation and like friends are doing this and we're going out and going here, not being able to say no.
Oh, 2020 was very stressful. It was constant.
Well, what I'm talking about the benefit of that, which was getting people to slow down.
Okay. Yes, I see what you mean.
So
I think
living in the city, you're running around all the time. You're really overstimulated.
Yeah.
In a big city like Toronto.
Yeah.
So you never get that reflection time.
Right.
So that brought everything closer, and death, which in North America we don't like to think about.
No.
I don't want to go commenting on like the fear mongering and blah blah blah. I'm just saying thinking about death. It just made us think about death. That should be next to you all the time. Hence the samurai. You should be thinking about death every day.
I see what you mean. It's the idea that, you only got this life, so make it
nobody's
worth
thinking
everything.
About you 2 generations from now. Possibly. You're gone.
Yeah.
So
Alex Ramosey's big on that as well. He's pretty straight about it. Yeah. So, with that, let's dive in. I'm curious.
No, we listen to the same talk.
We do.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. If anyone has anything to pick brain, no pressure if it's not coming to you right now. But if there's anything where you want to pick Erin's brain, just please let us know. I think we'll cap it off. I have a couple questions for you at the very end, but we could dive into any little picking your brain on your approach to art or anything like that. If anyone has anything, I don't know if anything's coming up in the chat. Yeah, Michelle.
Hello. I was thinking about what you're saying, kind of almost waste our 20s and maybe our 30s when we feel like we got a light start. For myself, I find that there's a lot of transferable skills that came from those phases of my life. And I'm looking at your piece here, and I'm wondering if your yoga practice really helps with the fluidity and the motion of what you're doing as a painter now. And if that was part of the building blocks of how you got to a start, and maybe there's other aspects of your life that are bleeding in there too to make that a style.
I don't know about the yoga practice element of it, how that goes on to the actual movement or style or the physicality of it. I see, you're moving your arm around. Maybe. I don't know. Well, okay, I interpret it a certain way, but that doesn't mean that's what it means. So the way I interpret what I'm looking at is, oh God, it just feels a little bit, again, it feels a bit contrived because I'm like, whoa, well, here's my opinion.
Hey,
anyway,
as an artist, you're allowed to do that now.
There is but yeah, there's a deliberateness to it, which is stillness in motion. Like dynamic stillness. So there's a couple of other subjects that are stone, right? So it's steadfastness. It's all the qualities that you're looking for in warriorship, right? And then you're going to find what the complementary weakness, right? So if you're really steadfast, you're probably a little stubborn.
Right.
You know?
Right. Every trait has a corresponding up and down side.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I keep that in mind looking at them. That reminds me of that because the Ronins they were without a master, so they sometimes lacked a lot of discipline. They didn't have the structure. So they were fighting a lot. That's why it was known as feudal Japan in a way. There was they were easily offended.
I have a great book you might enjoy. It's the 100 Lessons of the Samurai.
100 Lessons?
100 something.
I don't know. 100.
I haven't picked it up in a while.
Musashi, the Book of the Five Rings, I'm aware of, but I don't know this one.
It was written by a samurai, and he just had all these single-page points that he made about basically being a great samurai, and he was the undefeated. Wow. He was one of the most legendary at the time. It's quite cool. You might enjoy it.
I don't know.
Good bedtime reading.
I don't know if that answered the question. We got off onto the samurai a little bit. You basically asked, did the yoga practice influence the thing?
And what other things?
But not deliberately.
I think the question was how did your past experience bleed into what you're creating now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say themes because otherwise I'm just gonna blabber I'm like too lateral. So again, being steadfast, moving through light and shadow, the play of the elements, because that's ultimately what is happening. We're just experiencing the elements, right? So we're going earth, fire, water, air, space. Yeah.
All right.
No, we're just moving through the elements. That's all, really. There's not much.
I hear an artist statement brewing in there somewhere, right?
It's in there. It's in there.
Awesome. Any other good, just want to pick Erin's brain on anything? Questions for her?
Okay, so Erin, when you are so passionate, like everything you're saying, you are so passionate, your hands, like, just,
yeah.
And you fall back into that mindset. Forget about the business, forget about every part of what makes it what you're doing as your collection. When you were painting the series and you stand back with a paintbrush or 2 or 10 or whatever, and you're painting it, what makes you, what is it that drives you? Do you music play? Are you, what do you do?
I understand.
Approaching your work, not from a business perspective, but more from how do you get into your inspired state to create your work? Yeah, what gets you there?
Enjoying. Yeah, allowing myself to enjoy. For whatever background, story, blah, 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 my constitution is such that I'm a little intense, too serious, too analytical. And when I say too, it constricts.
I certainly didn't mean that when I asked that question. And that's not what I meant at all. I didn't mean it's that because you've done your yoga practice and that's calm and that's serene and yin yang and
maybe.
So when you stand in front of an empty canvas, what is it that drives you?
Oh, an empty canvas. Oh, I think while I'm painting in a session. So process. I see what you're asking about process. So the question. Yeah, okay, getting into the zone sort of flow state. What I really it's the unclenching and just saying you don't have to do anything. Nobody is going to die, so just lighten up. But I really have to talk to myself that way when I come in, and I just have to go just unclench.
Right.
And it takes me a while to get there. So I'm answering the middle of this question. So when I'm actually in a session, then I can step back and then I go, oh, I'm enjoying. And that's when I'll, get into the flow state and really something interesting will happen. But when you're talking about process, I use references. It's extremely deliberate. It's not like, oh, I look at a canvas and I wonder. Like, that's not how I do it. Lots of people do it that way. So a lot of abstract, expressionist painters, that I have sources that I refer to. So those are planned digitally, and then I'll make sketches or I'll just sketch it out. And I have a map. And yeah, and I'll listen to music. Yeah. Yeah. I'll listen to music. I'll listen to books on tape or podcasts or whatever. Yeah. I just have to keep doing it. What gets me there is the fact that I have to be consistent. It's not when I feel like it. My feelings are not going to dictate my actions. Although sometimes they do. Yeah, I have a lot of meltdowns. Yeah. I have a lot of meltdowns. I'm very emotional. I feel a lot of profound emotions. I'm like very up and very down, and it's fine. Right? What the yoga practice does, and it's not always serene, but that's a whole other topic of conversation. But what the yoga practice actually does is make you okay with being neurotic. Like, it doesn't necessarily make you less neurotic. It makes you okay with it.
Right.
I'm using neurotic loosely.
Sure.
Yeah, like your faults or however you want to. It's fine, right? To stop running away from being angry and sad and furious. Yeah. It's fine. Just observe it and then move on. It's okay.
I touched on a lot of things there. It's a very honest and open, explanation of what it takes to create. I think this is applicable in general, right? Have process, try to be consistent, just sort of deal with the emotions, unclench, relax, but then also try to enjoy it as soon as you can. And
you just enjoy it,
and once
man.
There's a point where it happens. There's definitely a point where it happens. I'm starting to enjoy this. My first episode was terrifying. It was dreadfully terrifying. No one knew, apparently, but I knew.
Yeah. And people are much more generous with you than you are with you.
Sure.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's
well, sometimes it's not necessarily you're getting the full story, but then at the same time they're also giving you leeway. So I see what you mean.
Yeah, they're being very generous with you.
Sure.
People are. Yeah.
I love that about people. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for the great questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Any others? I've got a few more of my own, and we can cap it off on a great, successful third episode of Prolific. Maybe go get a drink.
Doing great. I liked the first two very much.
Awesome. Yeah, this is fun to do. So, I want to know now what's immediately next for you, so the audience can know how to follow you along in this journey. And I'd love to know really where you see yourself in 1 year, where you'd like to be in 1 year.
Website will be launching shortly. Right now, if you're interested to see it, it's Erin J. Mather's art on Instagram. It'll be on everything. But right now, it's primarily just on Instagram if you want to see some of the stuff. That's the sneak peek. In a year, we're going to have premium products available because you and I are working on those. Things like beautiful, like dissect, industry speak. It's we'll have some acrylic, glossy, beautiful, inspiring pieces.
Yes.
Yeah. I want people to be able to turn to it when they feel like they can't do it anymore. I want them to go, okay, keep going. That's what Conan does for me. Like, I put that movie on.
Right on.
I just listened to Basil Polidaris's soundtrack to that movie, and every piece has a corresponding book, and every piece has a corresponding song, actually.
Oh,
but you'll get that
within your own, like
you'll get that if that's for collectors. If they buy an original, they're going to get quite the package.
So
experience.
They'll get a book, a song, like a sort of
more.
a full.
There's more.
There's more.
But I'm not gonna.
That's
say.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep it a little bit under the until you're ready, right?
Yeah,
okay, that's cool.
There's a whole experience that comes with it. So being able to so in a year from now, that the collection will be finished and available, and maybe gallery. I'm not sure yet about the gallery. Just transparency. I'm not sure if we're doing gallery or not, because honestly, there's some trickiness. I heard you interview Curator on the Go about the Canadian galleries.
Yeah.
there's a whole host of things you could talk about
Sure.
with that. I just haven't found any galleries except for the Kent Farnworth Gallery. Kent Farnworth in the library in Port Perry.
Okay,
Beautiful
is that
gallery.
Farn?
Kent
Worth? Okay.
Farnsworth? Oh my goodness.
Farnsworth. We're gonna look him
Her
up.
name, her name is Kent.
Okay. I'll check that out.
But we'll see about galleries because the splits are no good for most people who are self-representing and who are good at sales. However, they're really good for your reputation. They're really good to expose you. And not everyone is business-minded and not everyone is interested in it. And that's fine. We need galleries to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's some artists that really are just like in the studio artists.
Yeah.
That kind of, that gallery relationship is critical,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's others who are way more exuberant and, out there, or, whatever your personality is, that doesn't matter so much. It's just the willingness and the desire to market.
Mm-hmm.
And bring yourself to market and
Yeah.
feel confident to do that. There's a lot in that, It can even be hard to talk about your own work.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's tricky to do, and that's not for everybody. But I'm quite fascinated. Like coming soon. Definitely.
Yeah, you can throw your email in there. Right now it's Hugo. It's that standard.
Oh, you have a website up
it's
with
the standard. It's the Shopify front facing under construction.
Notify
it
me.
says just throw your email.
Guys, make sure you get notified. Get your email in there.
I won't spam anyone.
Awesome. No, I feel the same way. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I got to say, this has been a wonderful discussion. It's been really good to get to meet you in person finally.
Yes.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thank you for being interested in someone who's not quite launched yet.
I thought your story was quite fascinating, so I'm glad we got to get into it.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everyone for being here. Let's give Erin a round of applause, guys. I'm a Toastmaster, so I applaud all the time. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming to Prolific. Catch you next time, September the 14th. We're having the owner and founders of Mastrius on air with us. This one will be virtual. They're in Alberta. It's a little too far to drive. And we're going to have a blast talking about how they founded a global artist coaching initiative while also running her own art career, basically being prolific creators. And thank you again to Erin for being our prolific creator today.
Thank you.
All right. It's starting.